of Africa. For that, we're joined here in the studio by, yes, Georgia Carvin-Smith. Georgia, over to you.
Thanks very much, Mark. This is, of course, Africa News, and freedom of speech activists in Tunisia celebrate the acquittal of rapper Clay BBJ, who'd been jailed on defamation charges for songs railing against authorities. Also, South Africa's President Jacob Zuma speaks exclusively to France 24 about the health of the father of the nation, Nelson Mandela. And African wildlife authorities meet the escalation in the problem of rhino poaching head-on. We head to Kenya and South Africa to see how they're tackling the problem. First up, Tunisian officials say that 2 police officers were killed and another wounded in an ambush by suspected extremists. The attack happened on Thursday in the northern town of Goubelia. The officer's vehicle was reportedly riddled with bullets. Well, we're here now from France 24's correspondent Misha Benoit Level. He tells us that there's still no confirmation of the belief of the authorities that the attack was carried out by jihadists.
The Ministry of the Interior has called it an armed terrorist group. So they use the word terrorist, but really other details are not forthcoming. The Ministry of the Interior had said about a year ago that there was a stronghold for an Al-Qaeda and the Islamic Maghreb group in the region. It was actually about 50 kilometers to the west of where this incident took place, towards the Algerian border. So it remains unclear whether or not there is a direct link between those groups, or, of course, also with the group in the mountains farther to the south, the Jebel Shambi stronghold, where, as you recall, since the beginning of the year, about over a dozen Tunisian soldiers and policemen have been killed. They did, however, use the word terrorist. Other National Guardsmen in interviews have used the word Salafist to describe them, meaning, ultra-conservative religious groups. So they are indicating that this would indeed be the work of religious extremists.
OK, so authorities are currently in the midst of a security and political crisis. How's yet another instance of a security failure going to affect ongoing dialogue talks between Ennahda, the ruling Islamists, and the opposition?
That's right. Well, it was another incident of violence, and one that the Ministry of the Interior has said was Islamist violence, which led to the current political crisis, the assassination of Mohamed Brahmi. As of yet, most political parties have yet to take a position, one exception being Takatol, one of the secular parties that's in a alliance with Ennahda, who condemned the incident and called for everything to be done to find those who are guilty. However, there's no question that this will be added pressure from opposition, and in particular secular opposition, another bargaining chip to say that the government led by Ennahda has failed.
Well, staying in Tunisia, freedom of speech campaigners there say that today's acquittal of a rapper who'd faced defamation charges has given them hope for the country's youth. In September, Clay BBJ, real name Ahmed Ben Ahmed, was found guilty in absentia of undermining public morals for allegedly insulting officials with his songs, while his 21-month sentence was overturned Thursday on appeal. His case is one of several that have outraged rights groups who fear authorities are cracking down on secular media and artists. Now, Angola and the Republic of Congo signed non-aggression pacts a decade ago, but this week, Angolan soldiers crossed over into the southwestern Congo, Brazzaville, and took soldiers there hostage. The Angolas entered via their country's province of Cabinda, an oil-rich enclave separated from the rest of Angola. Nicolas Chaumont tells us more.
The situation remains unclear north of Cabinda in the area of Kimongo. Angolan soldiers entered Congolese territory via the province of Cabinda, which belongs to Angola. They took some Congolese soldiers hostage. The spokesman of Congo's army told us that for the moment he had no more details to offer. According to some sources, the Angolans were chasing rebels from the FLEC, a group that demands the independence of Cabinda. These rebels grabbed headlines 3 years ago when they attacked the bus of the Togolese football team. The attack during the African Cup of Nations left one person dead. Cabinda was annexed in 1975 by Angola when the Portuguese left. Luanda is determined to keep the province as it provides 60% of Angola's oil. The country is the continent's second biggest oil producer, just behind Nigeria.
After a vote by the UN General Assembly, 2 more African nations have won coveted seats on the UN Security Council.
Nigeria 186. Chad, 184.
Well, Nigeria and Chad were elected on Thursday alongside Lithuania, Saudi Arabia and Chile. Now, the seats give countries more clout on the global stage in negotiations over matters of international peace and security. There are only 10 spaces on the 15-member council that offer a 2-year place at the diplomatic table to non-permanent members. While the newly elected group will assume their posts next January, however, human rights campaigners have denounced both Chad and Nigeria's places because of their human rights record. Meanwhile, South Africa's hopes of winning a place on the UN Security Council has been backed by Poland's premier. On a visit to Pretoria on Thursday, Prime Minister Donald Tusk says he understands the African nation's aims and ambitions on this front. Tusk also acknowledged criticism that he's neglected fast-growing African markets. Though South Africa is Poland's biggest trading partner on the continent, Tusk says he's hoping to further boost economic ties. In an exclusive interview with France 24, South Africa's President, Jacob Zuma, has addressed concerns about the health of national icon Nelson Mandela. Speaking to our Mark Perelman, Zuma said that though his 95-year-old predecessor is still too ill to receive official visitors and still faces challenges, he is doing relatively well.
He's a fighter. I think even the doctors admit that he is a born fighter because I think he has been able really to fight as he has done, and then really to a stage where you were able to see progress. At one point, I was able to go and see him. I could see that he was really in difficulties, but at some point, when you could see him, you could see the response, even the recognition, etc., even a smile. So I think, in a sense, Madiba is Madiba, always does things that you'd think other people could not do. And I think even the doctors admit that he is an amazing kind of man.
Well, you can catch the whole of that interview on Friday at 1:30 p.m. and 3:30 p.m. Paris time, of course. Try and catch that if you can. Faced with a surge in rhino poaching, Kenyan wildlife authorities say they plan on putting microchips into the horn of every one of the country's endangered animals. Poachers have become increasingly sophisticated in illegally hunting rhino. Kenya's only got just over 1,000 left. Police are ramping up efforts to track and prosecute traffickers. Meanwhile, in South Africa, home to 80% of the world's rhinoceros population, there's also been a rise in their slaughter this year. With rhino horn powder being sold for around 50 euros a gram in Asia, poachers are feeding a lucrative trade.
Angry and shocked, park rangers working at this nature reserve say they've never before been confronted with scenes like this. The discovery of the mutilated corpses of their chargers has left them feeling powerless.
This one, it was killed on Thursday, but we discovered this carcass on Friday. Then we conducted the post-mortem on Saturday. So they're just using the special drugs to paralyze the animals. When the animals is paralyzed, they can't move, and they come and they chop the horns.
There are still more bodies. At least 3 rhinos were killed in the same day. Vet Dave Cooper carries out the autopsies. He's part of a special surveillance unit for rhinoceros in the region.
Sunday morning. Yeah, it happened earlier. They go out of their way to not to leave evidence behind. They collect their expended rounds, and we don't have any evidence. We can get to a crime scene, and we've got very little to work with.
Every day, helicopters fly over the reserve in search of poachers. Not long ago, a group was spotted near the border with Mozambique, but by the time a patrol arrived, they were nowhere to be seen. All that was left were their guns equipped with silencers.
It's definitely a war. They're shooting at us, we are shooting at them. Human life is being lost on both sides, and it certainly is a war. We've now, I know in other parts of South Africa, poachers have used hand grenades.
Air surveillance efforts are backed up by regular foot patrols. Rangers use their expert knowledge of the area to help with the fight against rhinoceros poaching. This year alone, 700 have been killed across South Africa, which is home to the majority of the world's 25,000 rhinos.
That is Africa News from me, but I will be back with more tomorrow, Mark.
Georgia, it's just so sad what people are doing to those rhinoceroses. You know, I mean, they're such gentle creatures. I mean, they look fierce, but, you know.
And what's funny is that you can actually harvest a horn without killing a rhino. They can actually be regenerated, but it's just easier, apparently, to
the animals in this world are the entire thing as the humans that we need to look out for, isn't it?
Yeah.
Georgia, thank you very much indeed.
Thanks
Georgia
very
Calvin-Smith, as ever, with the Africa Roundup there. We're taking a short break. After that, return with more world news, of course, plus sport and focus. Stay with us live from Paris.